Hello, everybody. This is our first English episode, as I've said earlier. So we'll see what happens. This is our fourth episode. So the startup we're going to focus on today is Nimble. It's an early stage Israeli-based startup. And our guest is Ofir Eliasi. He is a co-founder and CTO. Hello, Ofir. Thank you very much for being our guest here today. So before we talk about Nimble and why it's an engineering first startup and why it's interesting for engineers, I'm more interested about you and your background. So before we begin talking about the company, just tell us a few words about yourself, your background, or anything noteworthy.
Great. So I'll start from the end to the beginning. So of course, my name is Ofir. Hey everybody. I'm right now the co-founder and CTO of Nimble, new Israeli startups for the payment, supply chain, finance industry, powered by blockchain based on Ethereum. Before that, a long route of startups and technology. Before Nimble established Data, another startup that raised recently $3 million for the NFT industry. Before that, the CTO of Blocks or Block Staking, a very well-known ICO company from the 2017, and before that on RedKicks, leading dev team, the RedKicks dev team that acquired by Facebook, and before that Veronis that made an IPO back then, and up to can summarize as to 16 years of tech industry experience, mostly software, hands-on.
How old are you, if it's not a secret?
I'm 38. Yeah, I start early, super ambitious. I don't know. I guess the audience here are mostly Georgian. So in Israel, we must do an army service. It's mandatory. So during the army service, I start learning my degree and involved in the industry. Here, as a classic Israeli tech guy, I started my path and on the military, and later on the military tech industry, be involved with very cool projects. It's like a real video games, so and again, this is why, from one hand, we start late because we need to spend the extra 3 years on the army. On the other hand, it's put us early into the industry and give us a great opportunity to just jump in and start touching real things. What else?
I'm gonna ask you like a one clarification question. So when you started programming way back, like 16 years ago or so, what did you start to learn? What languages or environment were you exposed to?
Well, I guess that the start was on school, so it was like back then it was Pascal and Basic.
Really?
I'm that old. Yeah, I'm 38. I'm that old. But obviously, I guess the first and back then it was very common to start with .NET. .NET was just started, and I'm talking about version 1.1, and it became very popular. So that's probably my first professional experience. And also, by the way, I also did it on Microsoft, and I was part of developing Windows Mobile 7, the operating system for the last one that Microsoft tried to take over the world with. By the way, the funny story about this operating system, that the vision was to run Windows Mobile operating system on iPhone devices, on Apple devices. You know, now it sounds funny, but back then that was the idea, to do something that good that everybody want to use it.
Yeah, but the one thing that I find surprising is that Apple is always weird with the licensing. I don't know if you know this, but like there's a concept of a Hackintosh. Like you can run like a Mac OS on a PC hardware, but it's actually legal because according to the license agreement, you cannot run macOS software on anything other than developed by Apple. That's why they use my Mac Minis in the data centers and such, which is kind of crazy if you ask me. And I think that Apple will also have some kind of say that, okay, if you have an iPhone, you can only install our software and nothing else, because they're kind of crazy in certain ways.
I will take it to the other side and say part of the thing about Apple devices is the operation system. We all know that, and in order to make someone to want to put something else on top of it, then just need to be very good. And I guess, as we know, it didn't end up like that. But yeah, it was an interesting project.
So before we talk about Nimble, so we're gonna discuss like the tech stack of the company itself, and also the things that you use these days. But like, I have a few questions. So the stack that you currently use is React for the front end, and then Nest for the back end. So you're like all JavaScript, all TypeScript, and all the modern good stuff a lot of people use these days, and actually it's quite popular in Georgia as well. So my question is, how did you end up at that stack? Like, when was the first time that you were exposed, for example, to React or Node, and did you like it in the beginning? Because I remember at first time when I saw React, I said, yuck, I hate this.
Okay, so I'm in my background, I'm a pure backend developer. I must say that in advance.
Got it.
So starting with that and being very experienced with object-oriented, all version kind of types of object-oriented, from .NET, as I mentioned before, Java and Python, like almost everything. I discovered JavaScript or more about Node.js on its early stages on one of the startup that I just mentioned before. Start building something, and the goal, I think we realized the advantages of having like a all-around full-stack JavaScript solution. How powerful is it? And because everybody are talking about full stack those days, so it's okay. Yeah, you can do both. I'm obviously can't say that unified solution like someone that do both can be taken to extreme, but obviously this is advantage and flexibility that you can provide with having the ability to shift someone from one place to another or take over end-to-end functionality, especially when we are talking about early stage startups where the team is very limited and people need to do all around from fixing the window to buying food, and also backend and front end. So obviously this is the powerful of having a stack of JavaScript end to end. By the way, in my agenda till lately, it was okay, let's start with JavaScript front end, obviously, and also backend with Node.js. But on the backend side, there is a layer once you get more deep into backend architecture, when it involves calculation or massive data fetching or any kind of third parties that are unrelated to the API, then when the advantage of Node.js kind of end. But when there is a but, because and it's kind of, you have a limit, a line when you get into that and you need to get involved with object oriented. And I did the same process once with Java, once with Python, and of course once with .NET, starting with Node.js and then involving later microservices that are more object oriented. But I guess that now what breaks and shuffle all of this industry is obviously Nest.js, that I truly believe in and really like. There's a story about Nest.js because I'm lecturing and teaching Nest.js for more than 3 years, and now it's very popular and it's nice. But 3 years ago, I don't know if a lot of people know what Nest.js is, and back then it was very clear to me, at least, that this is gonna crack this problem of microservices end to end because of many things. But if you wanna touch the small and most important stuff, then Nest.js just provide any operative communication that other languages or other technologies that are non-JavaScript were an added value. And once you get Nest, then it's a bit pushed them to the lower stages of the lower places of the backend. So as for now, I hope that my last two ecosystem that I developed will start and also end with JavaScript and Nest.js. Obviously, that also involved with having TypeScript in that environment and the ability to create kind of a class architecture that I, as a pure backend developer, as I mentioned, really like.
Did you ever have any kind of experience with Angular? Because I used to write Angular for a few years for an enterprise company. And then I saw Nest and it's like, oh, this is awfully like Angular. And many people said that's a good thing and they loved it. But some people, especially about modules, and like there's some like touchy, iffy places where people say, it was the worst part about that. And now you're bringing it to here. And I hear rumors from my friends who develop on Angular on a daily basis. And they say that they're like Angular is about to get rid of, or there's somehow down the line, they're trying to get rid of the module system. And Nest is like doubling down on it. And like people are kind of surprised. So what's your take on it?
Of course, first, that's the first thing people say when I talk about Nest.js. Well, I feel like it's so like Angular, and the answer is that it's not like a feeling. It's written on the documentation. They're inspired by Angular.
Sorry, I have to interrupt. I just remembered. So to this date, on my VS Code, there are certain files in my Nest like backend hierarchy when it shows me the Angular icon. I have no idea why. It's doing some kind of pattern matching regex and thinking it's an Angular code when it's not. Like, it drives me crazy.
And it's so, by the way, it's not like they're hiding it. That's the first page of the documentation. They're talking about Angular. That's very clear. Let's say on the vacuum that exists on the backend JavaScript architecture, once you have Angular and you have React and some other like Svelte that I've experienced lately, you can argue what's better. But once you have nothing, then the first one that it takes you end-to-end architecture, file system wise, and design patterns integrated naturally into the story, then the advantage is very clear, and what it provides, it's very easy to estimate. So I guess once we will have another framework, backend framework for JavaScript, TypeScript, we can argue about it. But till then, there is one solution. So we're gonna take that as a default.
That's a fair answer. So before we move on to the next question, I just want to mention, and Ofir will mention this multiple times, that Nimble has some very interesting job openings. So one is for the front end position and one is for the back end position. So the stack is, as we've discussed, React mostly and TypeScript for the front end, and Nest and TypeScript for the back end. So if you're interested and if you want to learn more about it, like both job descriptions are already listed in the Facebook Live. Feel free to go have a look and apply if you're interested. If you have any questions regarding the interview process or the company or anything in between, feel free to ask us. We're going to discuss a whole lot of things, but if we miss something, you can just write a comment. It's as easy as that. And yeah, do you want to add anything of here, or maybe we can discuss like the actual like jobs when we talk about the hiring process and the company, because we've so to talk more about the company. So I'll move on to the next question. Is I'm very interested about Nimble as a product, so I'm very interested in like hearing like what you guys are trying to accomplish. And I'm more interested what your goals are, like what's the end goal rather than what you've built, because from what I've heard, it's a very early stage company. Like, how long have you guys been around?
2 months.
Okay, 2 months. So
it's officially 2 months, but as I said, it's a project that already started. Comparing to the amount of time the company officially exists, we got some very impressive achievements on the business side. So it's like the situation is like, maybe I can say about the product and what we're doing, and then you'll understand that how valuable is it. So of course, one thing we didn't mention about the project, that it's the goal is, the vision is to make this product powered by blockchain, and that's kind of maybe what we're trying to do. So mostly we're talking about supply chain finance and this whole ecosystem between payments and around B2B communication, suppliers and buyers, and the area of that supply chain provide. And with that, there's a lot of credit issues and funds related that are become very dramatic once you are supplying any service or product. And for that, right now, there are some solutions that already exist in the ecosystem, that you can get money in order to do whatever is required to your business, whether it's a small, large, or even an enterprise business. But what we are doing is actually can be divided into two. First and most basic part of it is to automate the whole system. Since now it's mostly manual on the old-fashioned financial industry. So the process of getting early paid or having like any kind of credit involved with a lot of papers and money transfer on the old-fashioned way. And that actually takes out from this process the entire value of it gives you, that it's efficient and quick. And what we're trying to provide is a fully automated system that can do the end-to-end process, estimate what you can get, and by your activity provide you some kind of liquidity and a credit. And by automating, I'm talking, of course, on the interface, but mostly about the blockchain. Okay. Why is that? Because this is obviously, I like to describe it, and that's what makes me excited, is like a real life use case based on blockchain. We see a lot of product, a lot of aspect of blockchain, cryptocurrency, and by the way, also NFT, that I'm also involved deeply. But once I see something that can be solve a real pain that exists in the real world, and not creating something, a new field, then that makes me excited, because this is the value of technology, generally speaking. It's like enabling, and blockchain has its own advantages of when it refers to money transfer, and of course automating like anything. So we take it's actually this solution is about taking the main advantages of blockchain and cryptocurrency and use them as an accelerator to a process. And by the way, the end goal is to provide end users money transfers that is based on blockchain, but at the bottom line, they can use it with a credit card. It's seamless. They sometimes don't even need to know that this is a wallet or powered by blockchain.
So you want to connect like a credit card, like issued by Visa or whoever, to like an actual blockchain wallet on some kind of chain. Wow, that's cool. And just before you continue, I just want to emphasize on one thing. I couldn't understand the whole hype about like the crypto and fintech and stuff until I realized that if you're building a global product which needs to take money from like one A and give it to B, C, and D, and those are in different countries and jurisdictions, oh boy, you're in trouble. There does not exist a single solution that will solve that. Like, people think that Stripe is doing that. No, Stripe is only doing half of it. It's not even enough, because collecting money is manageable, because there's lots of payment providers and you can charge people like cards. If you want to give money to people like payouts, oh boy, that's especially in emerging markets, which are booming and growing in terms of like where their economy is growing. Like it's like completely neglected. I still have no idea why there are like 1,000 more startups in fintech.
Well, not mentioning the amount of time that it required and the approvals. You need the bank to approve that first, and also taking a fee that is very high. And not mentioning like currency exchange that sometimes it's multiple times, and so it's like sometimes it's outrageous. People talking about, it's funny because people talking about like Ethereum fee that is very high right now, but comparing to what the banks and the credit card takes, it's like nothing. So that's the advantages of a blockchain and a cryptocurrency ecosystem. And I see a lot of weird, sometimes ridiculous projects around trying to do like everything based on on a buzzword like blockchain and cryptocurrency. But as I can guess, they're not going to survive because you need a real reason to use the blockchain. It's not like it's not for everything. And if you're using it on the wrong way, then you're gonna end up being, I guess I have to say generally, unsuccessful. But because you're gonna hit. Blockchain is expensive. If you use it in not in an optimal way, you're gonna get hit.
So speaking about Bitcoin and blockchain in general, so how did you get into the industry, and like what kind of prior applications did you have with Bitcoin? Because you mentioned you also worked on an NFT project and you have a vast experience in that. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
So yes, I guess like most of the people, it started with reading and maybe play with that on my spare time. And sometimes people get it wrong and think that this is good enough. By the way, a side note, and think that good enough and feel very comfortable about taking risks with their money, then first don't. On my case, once I get involved with that, like professionally, this is where I feel more comfortable about taking some risks. But so this is the end of the side note. But professionally, I started at taking the CTO position at Blockstaking or Blocks.io back then. After being around software industry for a long time and having like involved with data products or cloud-based ecosystems that are very intensive, Blocks was a very good place to get inside this ecosystem, because back then we were using like wide area of blockchain and cryptocurrency solution, and we were like fetching data and aggregating data all around. So I messed with and reverse engineer, actually not mess, it's like a more simple way to say it, but reverse engineer over 10 different blockchains and running them locally and play with data and see how it goes internally, not mentioning different types of smart contracts and DEX and wallets. So touching almost everything, get you a sense of how this industry worked, and that's what was super excited about it and amazing. It's
how big was the team? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was about 20 people. Yeah, Blocks is a very
That's sizable.
Was.
What happened to it? Did it get acquired?
So yes, kind of. The Blocks pivoted into block staking. Okay. What they're doing right now is providing a solution for Ethereum 2.0 stake. Oh, okay. But also it's part of Ethereum Foundation project. They get funded by Ethereum Foundation. That's super impressive. This is something you don't get every day, a recognition by the founders on the ecosystem of Ethereum. The old product was sold to a company named Luca. So that's kind of a success.
It is.
I think what was most fascinating about this product that we managed to get the top industry product and companies to use our product. And I mean by that, go to, for example, to CoinMarketCap, take the top 40, 50 currencies or companies over there. More than half of them were our customers. That's impressive. High volumes, a lot of data, production ready solution. Then that was a very impressive product. And as I said, this is a very good way to start or get into the industry, obviously. deep dive into that, real understanding of what's going on behind the scene. It's not like a chance that everybody get to mess with, and I'm really grateful for that.
There's one thing that I hear over and over again. I just want to make sure if that's a thing or I'm getting it wrong. Like Israeli startup culture and like crypto and Web3 seem to be very correlated. Is that a thing, or am I just misunderstanding?
I don't know about it. Israeli startups are specialized in specific fields. There are some things that they don't know to do well, or like Americans are more. It's more like a typical American startup, like B2C, for example. In Israel, we do, but it's more like you see other areas that are better. But the correlation, I think it's not between Israeli startups and cryptocurrencies. It's more like Israeli startups and new technologies, early adopters, and that new age, anything that. And I think this is my take about it. But Israel, proud of not being a very young company. With new infrastructure all over the place. That means that like all industries are not exist almost at all, since we are here for several tens of years, a few of them. Then on that case, everything that starts now or on the last decades, then we are we are in line to start because we are fresh. It's like starting a new company. You're always taking the new technologies and the cutting edge of everything that relates to that. And you see that, by the way, you see that on any field. You see that not on the software industry, but also in other industries. That really feels like that. The best example that here we mentioning is about aircraft and even the air military. So to build an aircraft like a fighter, it's something only superpower companies do. You have like the Americans and the Chinese and of course the Russians. But once you get into the next version of it, that it's remote control aircraft, no pilot, then suddenly you see Israel leading that. And this is a good example because you start from scratch and everybody on the launching it in parallel, and you see the advantage of starting fresh and being taken as one, and without string attacks, you can get better performance. And I guess that's mostly it.
So what's the Israeli startup culture like in general? And if you have experience with maybe the US culture or European one, like how does it compare to? Because before you talk about the Israeli startup culture, I can genuinely say that the Georgian startup culture is almost non-existent, and there are some first steps and hopefully it's going to improve. But like there's a joke that a fellow startupper told me a few months back, and I think that's a great analogy, is like building business in US and Europe is like being in a very fertile land and everything going perfectly. You have all the climate and things are growing really fast, really well. And building a startup in Georgia is like you're in the desert and the only thing that you can grow is a cactus because it doesn't require lots of water. So that's the way a lot of people feel in Georgia. So I think it's the reverse in Israel. So I want to hear your take.
I can say it. There's a term of under promise and over deliver. Okay. So here we start with over promise and then see what goes.
I love it.
That's then we hear the culture. It's like super ambitious. People can just commit or just take things that sometimes can sound imaginary and then figure out how to do it and what can be done. So this is definitely part of it. But as a start, I think the most dramatic difference, but talking about the culture, and of course I'm saying that because of my experience with working with European and Americans, and also Indians all over for a long time. And I also mentioned that with you on our discussion before that I'm on rehab for in many manners of being Israeli. Is that like it's different. We are sometimes, that's what I get from others, and I'm saying that like, but we strict. For example, there's no here. It's not like I think differently from you. It's like you are wrong, and we start sentences with yes and no, like it's total. Everything is very totalic. It's if I think differently and say no, that's and it's, I know for others it's super offended. It's like, and I personally I learned down the road to avoid that and not say and use say in my opinion, for example. It's very hard to say. It's like, this is bullshit. That's how you start a sentence. You can see sometimes, in Israel, you can see someone that did some studying and put a lot of effort in research. But sometimes, like say, for a few days, maybe sometimes weeks and months, you get into a room, trying to describe what he learned and what he got, and someone would say to him, "That's bullshit." And it's okay. It won't be an offensive. I know in other places in the world, that guy will wrap up his stuff and just quit of being, of course. And here it's like sometimes it's too strict, and I think the market right now and the culture is a bit more mature, so people are aware of that. This is not how it works on other places in the world, and try to avoid that. But definitely, there are many examples. Raising money a few months ago, going to a seed round, raising like $3 million, meeting a lot of investors and partners and angels and all around. And you see Americans that will say, "Okay, thank you." And you end the call, you don't know what you think. You're smiling all the time, and everything looks perfect. And sometimes don't even get back to you. With an Israeli investor, it will end up with him giving you tips and advising you what you should do and how you should do and what to do. So I don't know if that's an advantage or not, but I guess you get the sense of what you truly believe and what you feel. And there are no disappointments getting out of a meeting with someone like that. And you learn if you want to learn. If you are a junior entrepreneur and you go meet people and being polite, you won't get anything out of it. You don't know what's going behind the scene. You don't know what people are thinking and what they think about what you're doing. Whether it's a tremendous donation to the humanity, or it's full of crap. You won't know that. So that's if you want to learn, probably that will be an advantage to work with Israelis for sure.
You know what? I think I'm on the other side. But one thing that I really admire is the honesty part, and not like being not being unsure what is going on, because I can tell you that talking to the people, especially from the US, and like the richer and more affluent, the less they make sense. And so like what I've learned to do in like the last 5 years or so is I have a hobby. So I love writing letters, but like short ones, like emails and such. And I spend way too much time on writing letters and reading them. And so I'm the go-to guy to my friends. And what they do is they write an email. It's very direct. It's very blunt. And then they come to me and they say, "Hey, do you think it's okay to send it?" And it's like, no, you have to completely refactor it. You have to apologize, say thank you. So that's one thing. So it's like encoding a normal message into the overly polite message. And the second one is even more fun, is that when somebody receives a message who doesn't know how to decipher this overly polite thing, they think something good has happened. But when somebody experiences it, "Oh, this is horrible," like they really didn't like you, they just didn't use bad words. So it's always fun. But
yeah, it's fun. I saw other cultures, for example, that are sometimes they will say yes to anything, but eventually, even they didn't understand what you're talking about, they will say yes, or some others that are. So I guess it's a bit difficult, but you need to overcome that working globally. And there's so many fun stories, working on a project that was takes like 2 months, and after 2 months you realize that nothing happened because they just didn't understand what you are saying, or they didn't realize what is the goal of the product or the project, and they were just too polite to ask, and it's like they were doing nothing the whole time, like totally. And that's also happening, but you need to, I guess what I learned is to research any culture that you want to work with, and even more than that, to try to work with cultures that are more like your culture. That's definitely helpful. And by the way, I think that your area is obviously very similar to ours on the culture-wise and the way people act. And I get that not only by my personal communication, but also from people that Georgia is very popular on the truth side of Israel. They really like it. So I know and it's probably because of that. And this is an advantage when you are want to work with people, and it should be to get up in the morning with a smile and being able to communicate. That's definitely very valuable.
Yeah, and also being in the very similar time zones helps. I think the difference is like 2 hours, right?
2 hours, yes.
I have I can count at least 10 or 20 of my friends and acquaintances who exclusively work for the West Coast. So the difference between here and West Coast is 11 or 12 hours. So it's like you're a separate island here. So if you're a single person who's working in a company who's exclusive in the US, tough luck. If a company is remote first and it's globally distributed, then it's fine. Or if you have at least some members within Georgia as well, that's also helpful, because sometimes you feel really lonely because the time difference is 12 hours, you're stuck, you have no idea what to do, you don't have even anybody to ask help to. So you kind of go to the co-working space and just chill. That's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, tell me about it. Having constantly part of the companies are US based. Sometimes it's the CEO. It happens to me more than once. Lately, it was my partner for almost a year that lives in California, and I'm in Israel. So it's like, but you learn how to manage that. And you know what? There are some advantages, if you're talking about code and a product, you can mess up everything because they are asleep, and you have time until the morning in order to fix everything up. So that's also kind of an advantage. Here in Israel, we also have Sundays. That is starting the week early, because Israeli in Israel, it's the weekend is Friday and Saturday.
Oh,
yeah, and that's also kind of a
really?
yes.
I'm surprised. I did not know that.
Yes, so we are, as usual, different from the rest of the world, and spatial.
Is there like a historic cultural reason, or is it something else?
Course,
Okay,
yeah.
got it. Yeah,
it's like religious reason, because Saturday is the rest day, and you take one day before.
mm-hmm.
So it's Friday,
Okay.
Saturday, and so we off on Friday and we work on Sunday. And that's also some kind of an advantage, because if you have a live product, you need 24/7 support, and the problem probably is the weekend. So half of it we solved, because if we are working on Sunday and the rest are working on Friday, it's only you need to solve only Saturday. So that's also something, running 24/7.
I'm just doing a reverse calculation in my brain to figure out all the people from Israel that I've talked to. And I just realized there's surprisingly many who've texted me on Sunday, which is okay. But I always thought that they were just really diligent and they were hardworking on working on Sunday. And I just realized for them, it's just the first day of the week.
What about those that weren't responding on Friday?
Yeah, I have to count that as well. Interesting take. Yeah, you have to research all the cultures, and like, shame on me, I should have known this earlier.
This is in Israel, this is fundamental, definitely.
So to talk about Nimble, so you're a very early stage company, so I'm not going to ask you kind of engineering culture you've built so far, but you have very good experience and you have an idea of where you want to go. So my question is that what is the engineering culture that you're trying to build, and how does the recruiting process help you? So I'm less interested into actually like the recruiting process. I'm more interested about the interview process. So imagine you have a, a lot of resumes, a lot of LinkedIn URLs, whatever, right? And you have somehow have to make a decision through this like vast sea of people. You're not sure who's good, who's not. So how do you take with the filtering process, and what is your threshold that you like, and like do you do like a lot of manual interviews? Do you do like some kind of platforms that do like this algorithmic challenges, or do you use something else? I'm very curious about that part.
Well, I guess I hope I won't surprise you, but for me, it's more like the soft sense of the people and the CV. So it's not like it's not like numbers and parameters. It's obviously part of it as a start, because if you got
You're okay. We can hear you. We can see you.
I just okay. So once if you got into too many in an institution where you have too many CVs, you need to pick where to start, and that's definitely experience is definitely major part of it. But I must say that the process itself and how I act with people generally, and of course developers, it's to be first to be fair. So for me, tests and home test or offline test, all kind of versions of it that takes long are out, because I think that's inappropriate, and sometimes it's not fair, because I'm thinking about a developer that's looking for his next position, and interviewing on 4, maybe 5 places in parallel on a month. Let's say on a month, okay, 5 places on a month. You need to spend sometimes like 30 hours on solving or coding for them as a test, and that's I think that's not reasonable. It doesn't make sense, and more than that, I don't think that's the way to measure people. It's about, for me, it's about taking some risks, because you want to do a process that is super efficient, and you won't spend your time and the candidate's time, but also to figure out who is best or who is most relevant for you. And I think that the key here is about first define what exactly you need. And second, it's about experience. I'm talking about my experience as on the recruiting process, as an interviewer, as being able to measure what my need and what I can provide to others, because part of it, it's not like supplying or satisfying my need. It's also about making people better and help them grow and be successful with the company. So once you experience enough, you know how to manage that and find the right people with your senses, with the right parameters, and how to read CVs. You know how to read between the lines, and obviously that makes it super efficient. On some way, I can say that it doesn't scale. You can do that. You can recruit.
That's what everybody says. Like if you're looking for like, even if the talent pool was not limited, which is very limited, the process of filtering and finding the right people is so unscalable, at least so far, is that you have to just accept it as a fact, because there's only so much time you have, and if you do all the interviews, you will not have time to do other stuff which are more important. So I'm exactly in the same boat, so I fully understand you.
So what about that, talking about the team, then what I realized very quickly on my early stage of management, then if you have if something that is capacity is close to 100%, then you should hire someone to do that. Of course, that depends on the amount of money that you have, but a recruiter is something you get very early on my startup, because the CTO shouldn't be focused on recruiting only. And it's not like it's cost-wise inefficient, and on time and focus it's inefficient. So that's part of it. The funny is that most of the companies having an HR position or a recruiter, after the team is big enough, and that's exactly the opposite. You get in the recruiter position or the recruiter team. Depends on how many positions you want to open and how many people you need to recruit on the next year or two, and not the opposite, how many people you have, because this is a kind of like too late.
But here's my question: Does the number of recruiters somehow scale? So let's say if you don't have a recruiter and now you have one, and then you have 2 or 3, like, do you think the additional recruiter brings it just like significant additional value? Because based from my experience, and I could be wrong because this is from my region, is that recruiters usually have like surprisingly little value. Like some of them are like top notch, they're great, you're lucky to have one, but like if you select like an average recruiter, you're in trouble. And if you want to find a rockstar recruiter, you need a recruiter to find a rockstar recruiter. So it's again it's a recursive thing. It's hard.
Definitely, it's I know what you're talking about, but let's say if you are first, it's about having the right platform or product involved with the recruiting process. There are some of them that are doing a very good job, because in order to scale, I think most of the time a single recruiter with the right platform, with the right skill set, can do the whole thing end to end. And once you're talking about, let's say, for example, similar position, if you have a dev team, and it's as I mentioned, for example, it's around TypeScript or specific technologies, then a single recruiter can do it all, can spread the positions and work with all the providers that relates to that, and that's good enough. The scale is once you have like a dev team recruiting, or some others that are not exactly put on the specific position, and you're recruiting, for example, for product and designer and some other parts of the company, then you probably need to separate that, because you are actually fighting on the same resource. And as a person, focus or context switching is very hard. And once you're doing something specific, having another, in addition, something totally different, and I'm talking about, for example, recruiting some other areas of the company, then definitely makes them less efficient. And that's where the scale come, or splitting into, or having a team of recruiters is more relevant.
What about recruiting people with engineering management experience? Because that's when it gets really tough. A person who's good at engineering and also is good at people and knows what they're doing.
Well, I said first, I guess I must may say some words about how I manage teams of people. So it's mostly flat, and it's not like a gimmick or kind of a statement that is empty, because I think that having like hierarchy, it's something that I found is inefficient, and having a flat team without managers on the classic manner of managers, it's more efficient. The goal, or the way that I split or maintain this ecosystem, is by having people that are leading or in charge of areas inside this team or this product, and it can be on the technical aspect of it, like an architect or someone that's leading some front-end, back-end, ecosystem, DevOps, and so on, and maybe to do some other part of it or involved with other processes, but definitely take ownership about something. And it can be also project management, someone that lead that aspect of the development. And on that case, why you need managers? To do one-on-ones, to see that everybody are satisfied. It's become kind of irrelevant, in my opinion. So this is the process. This is like how I operate inside the teams. It's like, I know it sounds like it's like everybody are managers. Everybody has their own responsibilities. They're able to take ownership on part of the system. And it's most of the time, it's what they most like and good at, because you start with someone is involved with more dramatically on something, and then you get the another person into the team, and he's taking another part and take ownership of something else, and then that's how you grow. So people tend to do what they like and what they're good at, and then you do, and then you recruit what is missing, or hiring the right people to complete the path. And with that, that makes the challenge of hiring managers even harder, because you want people with managerial experience and know how to handle process and people, but they eventually will not title this manager or doing some other aspects that. And I think that's the challenge, because it's like kind of in a gray area of between manager and developer. Luckily, I think people realize lately that hierarchy is not necessary, and being a manager doesn't really mean that you're gonna be compensated more or doing more exciting part of it. Obviously, by the way, as an example, me as a CTO, part of the team, I'm hands-on. I'm doing part of the code, and sometimes on areas when other people lead. You know, we can have like someone that leads the DevOps, and he's in charge. We do the decisions together, but he will take that and will be fully responsible for implementation. And sometimes I took some tasks and do that. So it's not like it's and that's how it works. And as for now, on my recent project, it worked perfect.
Do you think it's scalable on a larger team, or do you think it's only suitable for like small startups?
I think on some point you'll need managers that are pure 1% managers. I think I also think that if I'm, as a co-founder and CTO, able to write code and being deep into the details, the managers also be like that. And but I guess they need to want and be able to do that. And in that case, that's definitely required to get very specific people with the skill set that are very talented, and being able to manage all kind of challenges, and also context switching, because context switching is part of the problem, I think, of humans. I guess that's humans have issues with context switching. That's definitely what I can define.
There's a rumor that females are more efficient at context switching than males are. I don't know if that's true or not, but my wife is way more efficient than I am. I can say that for sure.
Well, I guess let me get back to you in a year from now. Let's do some kind of a test. I will hire both and see who is functioning better.
Good one. So before we wrap up, there were some few questions that I didn't read earlier. So first of all, sorry for that. I'm going to quickly read two questions. I think both of them are easily understandable. So Eric asked, the question is that we mentioned that you're looking for senior engineers. So the question is that, do you consider junior engineers?
Well, in my, the way I see it, junior engineers are definitely should be part of the team, because a mixture is obviously a positive thing, but the differences between juniors and seniors, that juniors need to get inside a place where it's more defined and have someone to support them. And that's let's say I won't hire the first engineer as a junior engineer, because in that case it will be lost. Some of them are more talented, definitely, and some others are less. But if you don't have the support, you won't be able to learn. You won't be able to get better, and the frustration will be something that will kill you and make you quit. So I think the situation where I start hiring juniors is when I have the capability to support them, to get them tasks that they will be successful in, and in that case their motivation that is part of being junior become a huge advantage of and push the team to forward, and that's definitely required.
Got it. Thank you. And second question we have so far is that it's a question from Kieran. He's asking, is hiring bound to a particular geographical location, or are the places okay, like India?
I don't. My preparation is about definitely time zone to be on kind of the same time zone where do I, but it's not like a hard stop or something that I can say that I'm not willing to consider other parts of the world like India and that are time zone like very different from us.
Got it. Thank you. So we have another first question from Azeki. And his question is actually, it's a cool one. I'm also interested. So his question is that, what do you use as a message bus for communication between microservices? That's for a Nest question. And what do you think about Nets, so the message bus that's from the CNCF Foundation?
So I guess talking about microservices, it depends. Most of the time, the communication is depends on the goal of the microservice, the specific microservice. So it's whether it's with a queue or with the pub sub or any other methodology that relates to that. I definitely think it depends on the goal, on the subject that this services should provide. So I
think it was more about like question about your experience. So to give you an example, for people who use Nest and they use their message-driven architecture, they have their own drivers. Like for example, they have native support for Kafka, Nets, Redis, and like a bunch of 5 or 6 drivers or so, and you can also write a new one. I think the question was, do you use any particular driver? Have you used any particular driver for that's baked in, or have you tried to use something custom made?
I guess starting a new project, I'm just using the default one that Nest.js provide, and most of the time good enough. And I think the default, I'm start with the default and then change to whenever it's required. So I won't go into dramatic changes from the beginning unless it's definitely something that is required. So I guess that answered the question.
Got it. And if I remember correctly, like we had a conversation earlier, you use gRPC for Nest, or am I wrong?
I use gRPC for Nest, not in this current project.
What was your? I'm very interested because I've never used gRPC. I've interned for Google like 3 months.
I'm more than that.
Sure, go for it.
I tell you what about gRPC. What I did with gRPC. One example, I have a product that runs on top of gRPC communication. But what I do when I try to prove developers when I'm teaching SJS, whether it's a workshop or it's like an event, and I say, okay, let's do how easy to implement RESTful API based on the HTTP, and it's like you just connect everything, create a controller, and then it's running and it's perfect. And so okay, let's see how cool is it to just switch to gRPC, okay? And you do the changes, keep the logic in place, and just do the decorators and whatever to define, and of course the files that defines the communication, and it's working. And then I said, okay, now let's do them both. Depends on the same code, the same controller, and you just merge that, and you see both of them running in parallel on the same ecosystem, and that's fascinating and that's nice. So that's first. About gRPC, I think the differences that I see eventually about efficiency and speed and all of that, it's very interesting. It's mostly let's say like that. I think the problem is on most cases that you can cover that with another instance, with a powerful CPU, with a powerful processing, and that solve it. But once you get into large scale, it's gonna crash or gonna be not good enough to run high volumes. And that's why sometimes you can be tempted to use like inefficient protocols or technologies. And I think I really like gRPC. Getting back to the first question, I really like gRPC. Once you're running product that is the communication between backend and frontend is very high, then you see how nice it is. Besides being able to write in gRPC API easily, what I do want to be involved, by the way, this project that I know, playing with that a bit, reading, of course, but I haven't done production level product based on GraphQL, and I guess that's the next step. So I know I'm sharing it with everybody, but this is definitely part of it, about trying and see what works better. So I guess that's the next step for me.
Interesting. Thank you very much. So I think we have time for one additional question. So if everybody has something to say, just write in the comments, and I think we're good to go. And before somebody writes a question, there's one question that I generally love to ask people, and I think it's a great opportunity to ask today, is that like, I love people when they dislike something, where they're in rage or they're just angry. So my question to you is, what is something in our industry, like be it like development, engineering, blockchain, whatever, that just really frustrates you and you think is completely wrong?
Well, first I can say, maybe talk about blockchain that you mentioned, and people need to know that blockchain is not the solution for everything. And you can run everything based on blockchain, at least not for now. And once you're involved with this technology deeply, and I have a lot of experience, and I'm considering 5-6 years as a lot, because this is a new technology. On that case, everybody reach out to you and try to get involved with some project, and you see projects that are unrelated, sometimes ridiculous, that based on blockchain, and people just use it because of the buzz or whatever. And what I'm saying to them, and I want to say to everybody, that blockchain is not the solution for everything. It's you need to use it. You need to use and to be aware of its advantages and disadvantages, and it's not the default. Obviously, it's not the default. And I have some funny stories, but I won't share it with you right now with everybody.
Okay.
But
We can do it next time.
Stories, definitely. And I can also say that this is like back on 2000, the years of 2000. It was when the laser came out to the mass adoption, and you were using laser for everything. Fixing your eyes and cars, and do some other, and cutting and some. And suddenly everybody were using laser for, and if you want to do something and you do it with laser, then it's good, obviously, definitely it's good. And I think tagging the blockchain as positive, whatever, whenever, then that's definitely wrong. You need to be very careful with that, because this is definitely powerful, but also very risky solution. And maybe I can talk about one thing that I maybe want to, I don't know if it's to mention. It's about the culture, at least here in Israel, but I guess it's worldwide, about people just wanna be entrepreneurs, want to cut the path from when they start, and just start as a founder. Having the title of founder, being an entrepreneur, and even now, and being an entrepreneur is not enough. You need to be an serial. That's also the title that you wish for. Okay, and by the way, having 2 startups doesn't make you as a serial. Okay, that's not serial, for sure. So, and I think back then, I think 10 years ago, it was like about everybody want to be managers. And once they realized that the hierarchy is irrelevant anymore, they want to be entrepreneurs. And I think that once you skip on the fundamentals, if we're talking about the tech software industry, about coding, about having the right, skill set, it's gonna end up with a solution when you can get back to that. Okay, that's for sure. And if you don't have it, you eventually won't have it. So what I'm saying is just take it easy, get the right, foundation, being able to touch everything, and that's what will makes you the most powerful. And I obviously see that right now, picking that path and not rushing into managerial positions or entrepreneurial position or whatever how you want to call it, but obviously taking one step after another, doing it like doing it right. I hope for me it worked, and don't rush into that, I guess.
Thank you. So since you've said two, I'm going to just quickly say my two pet peeves that really make me angry. First is we got to do something with the LinkedIn captions. They're getting out of hand. It's like, I cannot understand how people can write so many words and make zero sense. Like literally somebody can have 8 titles and I have no idea what this person is doing. I can go to their bio and read the description, which is written by like a professional copywriter, and my question, what does this person do exactly? Like, I'm really curious. So that's one. I really hate these like overly polished things that use like blockchains and buzzwords like beat. So I fully follow you. And second thing that I'm really tired of is it's the concept of the inflation of emojis. So it used to be that you should like write smiley. Now I have to do like crying smiley, then it's skull, then I have to 3, 5. It's like crazy. How many emojis are enough? I want to know. So it's kind of crazy.
I guess just in addition to what you just said about emojis, you want to have like so many emojis that just as like a pop-up or something that once you push it, you see what does it mean, because I sometimes obviously don't know. So I don't know, so that's first. And about LinkedIn, over there it's like what you mentioned. I think it's the same, but people something makes as an achievement to have like so many people as followers or connected, and I don't think that's the whole concept of LinkedIn. Okay, so if you saw 3,000 friends on LinkedIn because you just ask for friendship from everybody, it doesn't make it successful. Then that's kind of ridiculous in my point of view. Yeah, I guess that's it.
I think there are no more questions. Thank you very much for being here and being our guest. I wish you best of luck at Nimble, and I just want to remind all of our listeners that Nimble has currently 2 job openings, one for the front-end position for React and one for the back-end position Nest. Both of the job descriptions are linked below, and if you're interested, feel free to apply. If you have additional questions or if you want to know more about the Nimble, you can just reach out and maybe we'll sort something out. So I think that was it. Again, thank you very much.
And one small last thing that I'm gonna visit, since we're talking about this audience, then I'm gonna visit Georgia, Tbilisi on the 3rd week of February. Then, if anyone wants to talk or just have some kind of conversation,
that's a great idea.
I'm in.
And also like. I'll suggest some cool places for food and dine, because Georgia is famous for that. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.